When you're dealing with people who don't respect you, one of the first things you must learn is how to set clear boundaries. Boundaries are not about being cold, controlling, or shutting people out of your life. They are about defining where you end and where another person begins. They are a declaration of your self-worth, an invisible line that communicates, "This is how I allow myself to be treated." Without boundaries, you leave yourself open to being taken advantage of, ignored, or diminished by those who thrive on testing limits. And here's the hard truth: people will often treat you in the way you permit them to. If you silently accept disrespect, then you unintentionally give permission for it to continue. Think of boundaries as a form of respect you extend first to yourself. You're teaching others how to engage with you by modeling how you engage with yourself. If you tolerate constant lateness, dishonesty, or dismissive behavior without addressing it, then you set a standard that tells the other person, "This is acceptable." On the other hand, when you calmly but firmly confront a behavior that crosses the line, you signal something different. "I value myself too much to allow this pattern to continue." The act of drawing that line is not hostility, it's clarity. It tells the world that you are serious about your dignity, and those who don't respect you will feel that weight, whether they admit it or not. Of course, boundaries are not always easy to set. Many people hesitate because they fear conflict or rejection. They think, if I tell this person not to treat me this way, maybe they'll leave me, maybe they'll get angry, maybe I'll seem harsh. But consider the alternative. If you never speak up, you'll keep internalizing frustration, resentment, and a growing sense of powerlessness. Silence is often mistaken for agreement. By saying nothing, you allow disrespect to harden into a pattern. In the long run, that damages your relationships far more than a moment of uncomfortable honesty ever could. It's also worth noting that boundaries aren't just for toxic people. They are just as necessary in healthy relationships. Even the people who care about you can unintentionally cross lines if you never express where those lines are. Think about a close friend who constantly asks for favors, or a partner who assumes you'll always drop everything for them. If you never clarify your limits, they may take your sacrifices for granted. Then what began as love or friendship starts to feel like burden and imbalance. The most respectful people in your life will actually appreciate boundaries because they bring clarity, reduce misunderstandings, and build mutual trust. Now, setting boundaries doesn't mean building walls. The purpose is not to isolate yourself or cut people out at the first sign of difficulty. It's about balance. A wall keeps everyone away, but a boundary is like a fence with a gate. You decide who comes in, how far, and under what conditions. It's about conscious choice. You're not closing yourself off from human connection. You're simply protecting your mental and emotional space so that connection can be genuine and healthy. Psychologically, boundaries serve another vital purpose. They reinforce self-identity. When you lack boundaries, you blur into the expectations, demands, and pressures of others. You become overly accommodating, perhaps even resentfully so, because you're trying to preserve peace at the cost of your own authenticity. But the more you define and enforce your boundaries, the more grounded you become in your own values. You begin to live from a place of self-definition rather than external approval. That shift changes everything. People may still try to test you, but once you've internalized your right to self-respect, their attempts lose power. Of course, you have to be prepared for pushback. Not everyone will react positively when you enforce a new boundary. Some will resist because they benefited from your lack of limits. They'll accuse you of being selfish, rigid, or difficult. But notice that the loudest objections usually come from those who profited most from your silence. If someone truly values you, they may need time to adjust, but they'll eventually respect the clarity you provide. If they refuse, then their reaction is proof that they only valued what they could take from you, not who you are as a person. Boundaries also demand consistency. You cannot draw a line one day and erase it the next, depending on your mood or the pressure you feel in the moment. Consistency communicates seriousness. If you backtrack or make exceptions every time someone pushes, you train them to ignore your words. Enforcing boundaries requires courage, yes, but also follow through. You must be willing to face discomfort in the short term for the sake of respect in the long term. Philosophically, setting boundaries touches on something deeper, the recognition of your inherent dignity. Every person has a responsibility to honor the worth of their own existence. If you let others trample over you, you're not just failing yourself, you're also neglecting that fundamental responsibility. Think of it like a contract you hold with life. To stand as a guardian of your own value, boundaries are not a privilege, they are a duty. And when you fulfill that duty, you naturally inspire others to respect you, even if reluctantly. The beauty of this process is that once you master boundaries, you no longer waste energy begging for respect. You embody it. You project it in the way you speak, the way you hold yourself, the way you choose what you will and will not tolerate. Respect is not something you demand with words. It's something you cultivate through the quiet power of your actions. The very act of setting boundaries changes the way you move in the world, and the world responds accordingly. So if you want to handle people who don't respect you, start here. Draw the line. Make it clear. Don't apologize for it, and don't waver. Remember, boundaries are not about punishing others. They're about protecting yourself. They are an affirmation that you matter, that your time, your energy, and your dignity are not up for casual disposal. Some people will adjust, others will leave, but in either case, you'll be standing stronger, clearer, and freer than before. At the end of the day, the way you allow people to treat you becomes the standard they adopt. If you want respect, you must first respect yourself enough to demand it through the boundaries you set. That is the first and most decisive step in transforming the way others engage with you. And here is the bottom line. When you draw a boundary, you are not pushing people away. You are pulling yourself into alignment with who you truly are. And when you do that, the people who are meant to walk beside you will respect it, and those who don't will quietly fall away. Would you like me to go ahead and expand key point 2 in the same style up to 1,000 words so the whole speech flows consistently? When you face someone who disrespects you, one of the easiest traps to fall into is the impulse to react emotionally. Disrespect naturally stirs anger, indignation, and sometimes even a desire for revenge. It cuts deep because at its core, it feels like an attack on your worth. But here is where many people lose their footing. They respond with fire, thinking that intensity equals strength. In reality, what communicates strength more powerfully than anything else is composure. The ability to stand firm without losing control is a psychological weapon, one that disarms the very person trying to diminish you. Think about what disrespect is at its essence. It's often a form of provocation. Whether consciously or unconsciously, the other person is testing to see if they can get under your skin. They may want to feel superior, to rattle you, or to shift the balance of power in their favor. If you react in a flood of emotion, yelling, cursing, lashing out, you've handed them exactly what they were seeking. You've allowed their behavior to dictate your state of mind. They're not only disrespecting you now, they're controlling you. Composure, by contrast, robs them of that control. It says, "You may have insulted me, but you will not shake me. You don't get that kind of power over me." Remaining calm does not mean you're indifferent or weak. It doesn't mean you accept the disrespect. It means you choose to address it from a higher ground. There is an unmistakable strength in someone who can absorb a blow without flinching, Pause long enough to assess the situation and respond with measured words rather than reactive ones. That kind of presence commands attention. People sense it. They recognize it even if they don't admit it out loud. The ability to keep your composure is not just a technique. It's a signal of self-mastery. This is why philosophy, particularly the Stoic tradition, has long emphasized control over one's own emotions. The Stoics taught that while you cannot govern what others do, you can always govern how you respond. Epictetus put it plainly, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Disrespect, then, becomes a test, not of the other person's character, because that's already revealed, but of your own. It becomes an opportunity to show yourself that your dignity does not hinge on external chaos. Psychologically, responding with composure also shifts the dynamic in your favor. When someone disrespects you, they expect escalation. They're ready for a battle of egos. But when you don't give it to them, when you remain calm, thoughtful, and firm, it destabilizes their script. They don't know how to proceed because you haven't played the role they wrote for you. This throws them off balance and forces them to confront themselves, sometimes more effectively than any argument could. In this way, composure is not passivity, it's strategy. It transforms the interaction, often leaving the other person exposed by their own immaturity. Now, maintaining composure doesn't mean suppressing your feelings to the point of numbness. Emotions are natural, and pretending you don't feel hurt or anger is dishonest. What composure requires is discipline, the discipline to delay expression until it serves you rather than sabotages you. It's the pause before the response, the moment where you breathe, reflect, and ask yourself, what outcome do I want here, and what kind of response will get me closer to it? That question alone has the power to shift your state of mind from reactive to intentional. And let's be honest, sometimes silence itself is the most powerful response. Choosing not to engage in certain battles sends a message louder than words ever could. You're saying, I don't waste my energy where it's not valued. Silence, when used deliberately, can be a declaration of self-respect. But other times, a calm, direct statement is necessary. For example, saying, I don't appreciate being spoken to like that, in a steady tone delivers the point without excess emotion. It doesn't invite argument, it simply asserts reality. This balance, knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, is part of the art of composure. Of course, there will be moments when your composure is tested beyond comfort. Disrespect can feel like a trigger, especially if it touches old wounds or insecurities. That is why cultivating composure is not a one-time act, but an ongoing practice. It requires self-awareness. It requires knowing your triggers, recognizing when someone is deliberately pressing them, and reminding yourself that surrendering to reaction is surrendering control. The more you practice this discipline in smaller situations, like a dismissive comment, a sarcastic tone, or a subtle slight, the stronger you'll become when facing larger confrontations. There's also a deeper philosophical layer here. Composure in the face of disrespect reflects an understanding of human nature. You begin to realize that how people treat you often says more about them than about you. Their disrespect stems from insecurity, ignorance, envy, or a lack of self-awareness. When you see that clearly, you stop taking their actions so personally. You begin to detach, not out of apathy, but out of wisdom. You recognize that another person's inability to see your worth doesn't reduce it. And when you stand in that recognition, your calmness is not forced, it's natural. This doesn't mean you'll never feel the sting of disrespect, but it does mean you'll stop giving away your peace so easily. You'll stop letting every comment or attitude disturb your inner balance. And in doing so, you send a message not just to others, but to yourself that your state of mind is yours to guard, and you will not hand it over cheaply. Here's the paradox. The more composure you develop, the less often you will even need to confront disrespect. People sense it. They're less likely to test someone who radiates calm authority because it's clear that such a person won't be easily shaken. Your composure becomes a shield, one that deflects 1,000 small offenses before they even reach you. So when disrespect comes, and it will, because no one is exempt, remember that your power lies not in matching it with equal force, but in rising above it with controlled strength. People may forget what you said, they may forget the specifics of the conflict, but they will remember how you carried yourself. That impression, that quiet confidence, lingers long after the words fade. And here is the simple truth to hold on to. The moment you choose composure over chaos, you reclaim authority over yourself. You show the world, and more importantly yourself, that no one's lack of respect has the power to dictate who you are or how you move through life. Would you like me to now expand key point 3 in the same style, flowing naturally into the overall rhythm of the speech? Respect is not maintained by what you say in a heated moment. It is earned and reinforced by how you live day to day. People are far more likely to take you seriously when your actions consistently reflect a deep sense of self-respect. This is why standing firm through your actions is such a crucial part of handling those who don't respect you. Words can be dismissed, twisted, or forgotten, but actions carry weight that lingers. They create a pattern, a reputation, and ultimately a boundary that doesn't have to be announced. It's simply understood. Think about it. If you tell someone not to speak to you in a disrespectful way, but your lifestyle contradicts that assertion, if you constantly allow yourself to be drained by toxic situations, if you compromise your principles to keep temporary peace, they'll quickly realize your words are empty. On the other hand, if your choices reflect discipline, self-control, and alignment with your values, you're already teaching people how they can and cannot treat you without ever needing to raise your voice. Actions become the foundation that makes your boundaries real. Consider something as basic as keeping commitments to yourself. If you say you're going to get up early, exercise, or pursue a goal, and then you repeatedly let yourself off the hook, you send a subtle message to yourself and others that your own word doesn't hold much weight. And if you don't even respect your own standards, why should anyone else? On the flip side, when you consistently follow through, you strengthen an inner authority. That authority is visible. People can sense it in your presence. It radiates without you needing to announce it. Standing firm through your actions also means refusing to participate in dynamics that demean you. Suppose someone constantly interrupts you in conversation, dismisses your ideas, or speaks to you with condescension. If you just smile, laugh it off, and continue engaging as though nothing happened, your behavior reinforces their belief that their treatment is acceptable. But if you pause, redirect the conversation, or even choose to walk away, your action becomes the loudest statement. I don't remain where I am not valued. No debate, no drama, just action that aligns with your self-respect. Philosophically, this principle ties back to an ancient truth: character is destiny. Who you are on the inside, expressed through your daily habits and choices, eventually determines how the world responds to you. If you're inconsistent, respecting yourself one moment and abandoning yourself the next, you project uncertainty. But if you are steady, if your actions consistently affirm your worth, then others have no choice but to recognize it, whether they like it or not. Disrespect may still occur, but it won't stick. People can throw words at a stone wall, but the wall remains unmoved. Now, let's be clear. Standing firm through your actions doesn't mean you become rigid or stubborn for the sake of pride. Flexibility and humility are virtues. But it does mean that your core values are non-negotiable. You don't bend in ways that compromise your dignity or identity. For example, if honesty is central to who you are, You don't allow yourself to be pressured into lying to protect someone else's comfort. If loyalty matters to you, you don't stay silent when a friend or partner consistently disrespects your trust. Your actions must declare, "This is who I am, and I will not betray myself to keep you satisfied." That is firmness. That is strength. Psychologically, this approach builds resilience. Each time you take action that aligns with self-respect, you reinforce neural pathways that make it easier to do the same in the future. You build what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief that you have the power to influence your own outcomes. And when you carry yourself with that belief, disrespect loses its power to destabilize you. Someone may insult you, but instead of being consumed by it, you remind yourself, "My life speaks louder than your words." That mindset is liberating. There's also a ripple effect. When people see that you stand firm through your actions, they begin to adjust how they engage with you. Disrespect thrives on weakness and inconsistency, but it often shrinks in the presence of integrity. Think about a colleague who never gossips, never lowers themselves to petty conflicts, and always follows through on promises. Even those who don't like them are forced to respect them. Why? Because their actions create a standard that cannot be ignored. That is the kind of presence you want to cultivate. It's also worth reflecting on the fact that your actions not only communicate to others, they teach you about yourself. Every time you choose self-respecting behavior, you reinforce the truth that you are worthy of respect. And every time you compromise unnecessarily, you weaken that belief. So when you choose firmness, it's not just about the external effect, it's about the internal reinforcement. You are shaping your identity one decision at a time. Sometimes standing firm means walking away. Sometimes it means refusing to engage in battles that cheapen you. Other times it means pursuing excellence in your work, your relationships, or your health so that your life itself becomes a rebuttal to those who doubt or demean you. This is not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. When your actions consistently align with your highest values, you don't need the approval of those who disrespect you. Their opinions become background noise against the clarity of your own path. And make no mistake, this kind of firmness will test people. Some will withdraw, unable to manipulate or exploit you as they once did. Others will rise to meet the standard you've set, recognizing that you are not someone who can be taken lightly. Either way, the outcome is in your favor because you are no longer bending yourself to fit into spaces where respect is absent. At the end of the day, handling disrespect is not about clever comebacks or forceful speeches. It's about living in such a way that your actions make disrespect feel out of place. When your life is marked by integrity, consistency, and strength, those who disrespect you reveal more about themselves than they do about you. And your calm, steady actions make that contrast impossible to ignore. So remember this: when words fail, actions endure. Stand firm in what you do, in the choices you make, and in the standards you uphold. Let your life be the loudest declaration of your worth. Because in the end, the most powerful way to handle people who don't respect you is not to argue with them. It's to live in such a way that their disrespect has no place to land. Would you like me to now expand key point 4 in the same voice and rhythm so the whole speech keeps flowing naturally? One of the hardest lessons to accept in life is that not everyone deserves a place in your inner circle. Some people simply will not respect you, no matter how patient you are, no matter how many times you explain your boundaries, and no matter how consistent your actions become. Their disrespect isn't a misunderstanding to be cleared up. It's a reflection of who they are. And this is where the fourth principle becomes essential: learning to limit or even cut off toxic interactions. It's not an act of cruelty. It's an act of survival, of protecting your energy so that you can invest it where it truly matters. Human beings have a finite reservoir of emotional, mental, and even spiritual energy. Every conversation you have, every relationship you maintain, every interaction you allow into your life draws from that reservoir. If you keep pouring it into people who drain you with disrespect, you'll inevitably find yourself depleted with little left for those who value and respect you. You can't live a fulfilled and purposeful life if your energy is being siphoned by people who don't even care enough to treat you with basic decency. Protecting your energy, then, is not selfish. It's necessary stewardship of your own life. Sometimes this looks like creating distance rather than a complete break. Perhaps you limit how much time you spend with a colleague who constantly belittles you, or you stop sharing personal details with a family member who uses them against you. Other times, it requires the courage to make a clean cut, especially when someone's presence in your life consistently erodes your self-worth. This is never easy, particularly when the person in question is someone you love or someone you feel obligated to. But ask yourself, what is the long-term cost of keeping someone close who continually dishonors who you are? The weight of that cost accumulates quietly, and before you know it, you've sacrificed years of your life to someone who never intended to respect you. Philosophically, this comes down to the question of responsibility. Are you responsible for another person's choices, or are you primarily responsible for your own well-being? The answer is clear. While you can influence others, you cannot force them to change. But you can choose who has access to you. You can choose whose voices you allow to echo in your mind. When you withdraw access from those who repeatedly disrespect you, you're not punishing them. You're simply refusing to participate in your own diminishment. Psychology also supports this truth. Research consistently shows that the people you surround yourself with shape your self-perception, your habits, and even your long-term health. Negative, toxic interactions elevate stress, weaken immunity, and corrode confidence. On the other hand, supportive, respectful relationships foster resilience, clarity, and growth. Every interaction is like a deposit or a withdrawal from your inner bank account. Toxic interactions deplete you, while respectful ones replenish you. So if you're serious about protecting your future, you must become intentional about which accounts you allow people to draw from. Of course, letting go isn't just about others, it's also about you. Many people struggle with this step because they fear being alone or because they've tied their identity to relationships, even unhealthy ones. But what's worse than the discomfort of temporary solitude or the slow decay of your dignity under the weight of ongoing disrespect? Solitude, at least, creates space for healing and growth. Toxic relationships do the opposite. They prevent you from ever discovering what you could become if you weren't being dragged down. Limiting toxic interactions is not just about cutting people out. It's about creating space for better connections to enter. This is also why reducing exposure to disrespect is not an act of weakness, but of strength. Weakness clings to what is familiar, even when it's destructive. Strength recognizes when something is corrosive and has the courage to step back. Sometimes that means declining an invitation, not answering every message, or saying no to demands that drain you. Other times it means sitting down and stating directly, I can't continue this relationship under these conditions. These moments are difficult, but they are also defining. They prove to you and to others that you value your well-being enough to act on it. And yes, there will be guilt. There will be voices in your head saying you're abandoning people, that you should tolerate more, that you're being harsh. But guilt doesn't always mean you're wrong. Often, guilt is just the echo of old conditioning, the belief that your role is to please, endure, or sacrifice endlessly, regardless of the cost to yourself. Breaking free from that conditioning requires courage. It requires you to ask, what is the greater wrong, to disappoint someone who refuses to respect you, or to continue betraying yourself to keep them comfortable. Once you begin to limit toxic interactions, you'll notice something profound: clarity. The noise quiets. You no longer spend your days in constant reaction to someone else's disrespect. Instead, you begin to reclaim energy for the pursuits, relationships, and purposes that genuinely matter to you. You rediscover joy in your own company. You build strength from within, and when you meet new people, you can engage from a place of fullness rather than depletion. In this way, the act of cutting ties with disrespectful people is not just subtraction, it's multiplication. You gain back the freedom to live authentically. Think about the strongest individuals you admire. Rarely are they surrounded by people who demean them. Their circles are small but intentional, built on mutual respect and shared values. They understand that respect is not something to be begged for. It's something to be required by the choices they make about who they allow close. You don't need a crowd to feel significant. You need the right people, and you'll only find them when you stop making room for the wrong ones. So, as difficult as it may feel, sometimes the most powerful way to handle disrespect is not with words, not even with composed responses, but with distance. With the quiet but resolute act of stepping back, limiting access, and protecting your inner life from the erosion that constant disrespect causes. That decision will not always be easy, but it will always be worth it. And the truth is simple: you cannot force people to respect you, but you can refuse to stay where respect is absent. Protect your energy, guard your dignity, and invest in relationships that nourish rather than drain. Because in the end, the people who truly matter are the ones who see your worth without you having to fight for it. Would you like me to now expand key point 5 in the same style so the full speech comes together as a complete, seamless message? When someone disrespects you, it's easy to make them the center of your attention. You replay their words in your head, analyze their behavior, and even obsess over why they treated you the way they did. But here's the paradox: the more energy you give to people who don't respect you, the more power you hand them. And that's exactly why the final step in handling disrespect is perhaps the most liberating: elevating yourself beyond their influence. Instead of letting their disregard define your identity, you shift your focus entirely to becoming the kind of person whose life makes their disrespect irrelevant. Elevation is about growth, not reaction. If boundaries are about protecting yourself, and composure is about maintaining control, and actions are about showing consistency, and distance is about creating space, then elevation is about transformation. It's what happens when you stop looking back at those who tried to diminish you and start directing your energy into becoming more than they ever imagined. You don't prove them wrong by arguing with them. You prove them wrong by thriving without their approval. Psychologically, this move is powerful because it rewires your attention. Human beings are wired to focus on threats, which is why disrespect lingers in our minds. But when you redirect that focus toward building yourself, toward your goals, your health, your growth, you reclaim authority over your attention. And where your attention goes, your life follows. A person who invests in their growth eventually makes disrespect look small by comparison. Someone who is too busy excelling in their work, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and cultivating wisdom doesn't have time to be dragged down by petty voices. Philosophically, this principle rests on an ancient truth: greatness silences pettiness. Think about the people throughout history who rose above ridicule. Innovators, leaders, artists, philosophers, they were all disrespected, doubted, and sometimes even ridiculed in their time. But by staying focused on their growth and their purpose, they transcended the smallness of their critics. And here's the key: they didn't waste their energy trying to win over those who mocked them. They directed their energy into their mission, and in doing so, they rendered the disrespect irrelevant. The same is true for you. Elevating yourself also means surrounding yourself with people who respect and inspire you. The company you keep matters more than you realize. If you spend your time around people who belittle you, you will eventually shrink to fit their perception. But if you place yourself among people who challenge you to rise higher, you will grow into someone greater than you thought possible. Respect attracts respect. Growth attracts growth. And when you elevate yourself, you naturally begin to draw in those who see and value your worth without you needing to prove it. This doesn't mean you ignore every slight or pretend that disrespect doesn't hurt. It does hurt. But instead of lingering in that hurt, you let it serve as fuel. You transform it into motivation to refine yourself further, to pursue excellence with even greater intensity. Disrespect becomes a signal, not that you're unworthy, but that you've outgrown the environment where that disrespect thrives. Elevation is your way of saying, I am not defined by this moment. I am defined by the person I am becoming. There's also a deep psychological freedom in this. When you elevate yourself beyond someone's influence, you stop needing their validation. And when you stop needing their validation, you become unshakable. Nothing disarms a disrespectful person more than realizing their opinion of you holds no weight in your life. They may sneer, they may mock, they may doubt, but their words fall flat against the reality of your progress. And progress, unlike arguments, cannot be denied. Elevation is not just about external success, it's also about inner strength. It's about developing character, wisdom, and resilience that make you immune to the instability of others. Imagine being so grounded in who you are that someone's insult barely grazes the surface of your peace. That's what true elevation looks like, not arrogance, but stability, not pride, but clarity. You rise so high in your sense of purpose that their disrespect feels like noise far below you. And here's the beauty of it. When you choose elevation, you break the cycle. Disrespect often creates a loop. They attack, you react, and the conflict continues. But when you rise above, the loop dissolves. You're no longer locked in the dance of reaction. You've moved to a higher level, one where their disrespect simply doesn't reach. That's not avoidance, it's transcendence. Of course, this takes discipline. Elevating yourself is not a single decision, but a daily practice. It's choosing to read the book instead of wallowing in resentment. It's putting energy into your craft instead of rehearsing arguments in your head. It's exercising when you could be numbing yourself with distractions. It's making the small, consistent choices that slowly build a life of dignity and strength. And eventually, those choices accumulate into a reality where disrespect no longer defines you. It fades into irrelevance. So when people fail to respect you, don't waste your life trying to drag them up to your level or convincing them to see your worth. Instead, rise higher. Become so focused on your own growth, your own purpose, your own contribution to the world that their disrespect becomes background noise in the symphony of your life. They may not respect you now, but when you elevate yourself, you won't need it, because the respect you cultivate from within and from those who truly value you will far outweigh the absence of theirs. And here is the truth I want you to carry with you. The most decisive way to handle disrespect is not to fight it, it is to outgrow it. Because when you rise above, when you elevate yourself beyond the reach of those who cannot see your worth, you win the only victory that matters, the victory of becoming who you were meant to be, regardless of who failed to respect you. Do you want me to now weave all 5 expanded points together into a single seamless full-length speech so it flows as one unified piece instead of separate segments?